Okay, we are running a bit late, so we will try to keep the session as short as possible. I'm going to kick off by taking sort of an uninvited prerogative of recapping today from my perspective, because this is the wrap-up session, and I just want to kind of touch on a few points that were made during the day, most of them by the people who are still on the stage, and I just kind of want that to lead us into what I think will be a very interesting discussion. So actually I'm going to start by linking the closing comments from Phil with the opening comments by our guest of honor, Andrew Lam. And I just want to pick one point that Mr. Lam made about the opportunities in Hong Kong. I thought it was a very interesting speech, and the references to Star Trek were very charming, but the point he made about the greenfield opportunities in Hong Kong with the Northern Metropolis and the Lantau tomorrow, or whatever it's called today, I think that if there is a point to take from, or a point of concern that I think came up in some of the comments that people made, is that the greenfield field opportunities will not deliver what we hope they will deliver if there will not be a greenfield mindset in terms of the planning practices that go into mobility in Hong Kong. And what Phil was showing us at the end, that what we know is a TPDM, the transport, which you showed us, I was very envious that in London you hope to issue one that replaces the one from 2010. Yes. And Hong Kong, we're still working on a manual from the 1960s. And so, again, if those greenfield opportunities are not matched by the kind of fresh thinking that not just a place like London, but Singapore that Adam mentioned a couple of times and so on have, Hong Kong is really behind on refreshing its approach to planning, including, of course, mobility planning. Of what Mr. Leung from Transport Department, who unfortunately did not stay, said, I want to just touch on a couple of things which I think were both interesting and a bit concerning. I think that there is a bit of an overemphasis on data as being the thing that might save us, and I think that that's a bit of a I'm not sure that that's the thing that really is going to create better mobility conditions in Hong Kong. Not least, I think that identifying the problem of off-peak hour mobility as something that transport on demand will solve. I'm not sure how that works. It's one thing to say empty double-deckers are inefficient, but it's not clear to me how you replace during the off-peak hours double-deckers with a different system, completely different system that is commercially viable. We just heard that a solid company like Bravo is having difficulty breaking even. I don't know how you do that with a transport system that operates between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. So just kind of a question that I have about that. He also mentioned walkability, Mr. Leung, walkability, and there was one other thing that he mentioned that I thought was, sorry, my eyes are killing me, but we are aware of the study, we are aware of the pilots. The question is, what is the implementation plan across all of Hong Kong? It's a good thing to say, these are good things that we tried, but no one has come up yet with a system of implementing them across the territory. Ricky Leung from the Airport Authority has a great privilege, not just running or being part of an organization that runs a fantastic world-class facility, as Adam kept mentioning with great envy. It's also an organization, I think this is also very, very important to link to the point I made about governments, the standards that are followed by the Hong Kong government compared to maybe other places. Hong Kong Airport, and the MTR as well, but Hong Kong Airport in particular. Hong Kong Airport, and I'm saying it as someone who's done work at Hong Kong Airport for many years, more than 20 years, it's one organization in Hong Kong that doesn't follow local regulations because there are no local regulations that apply to the Airport Authority. As a result, Hong Kong Airport Authority benchmarks itself and its operations and to international benchmarks like Changi Airport or, I don't know, Munich Airport or Incheon and so on. And those airports are in the business of delivering high quality service to individuals, to people, to passengers. So they're very people centric. And so Ricky has the advantage of being part of an operator. I mean, to say the Hong Kong airport is fantastic, it's because it doesn't have a TPDM. Its TPDM is global standards that Hong Kong airport feels compelled to deliver in order to be competitive in the global field, which of course are PTIs and so on don't compete with anyone. They don't compete with Singapore or London or anything, and that's why maybe they are not as good as they should be, even though that wouldn't be the case with MTR. So it's just kind of interesting to observe that. Also worth noting that for the technology that was mentioned by Mr. Leng, the Transport Department, the advantage, the reason autonomous vehicles are implemented by the Airport Authority is because, just to be very, very clear, this is a closed loop system. Autonomous vehicles is going to be connecting the BCF to Sky City and then ultimately to Tung Chung. Also, the autonomous vehicle applications that are in use at the airport are all in a very controlled environment, airside, with limited speed and only authorized users around. These are very, very, the kinds of environments that where autonomous vehicles are compatible. I'm not so convinced that Hong Kong streets in general, or for that matter, streets of any other city are appropriate for that, but that's just kind of another observation. Andrea is the first one who's on the stage, so I have to be careful what I say. So far I said talk about people who have left the room, but Andrea's here. So, I mean, look, you already got some comments and questions, and to be honest, I think that we shouldn't dwell too much on eVTOLs in this particular discussion. I do want to note that to say it's not a VIP, the answer to it not being a VIP service to say we will also have a community facility and that does other things for the community. I have to say it's strikes me as a bit of a weak mobility kind of argument. I think that the question that your industry will continue to struggle with is to convince the public that the investment in infrastructure is worthwhile for the community at large, and we can leave it at that because other points were made, and I think this issue is very clear. Andrew, of course, has always made a very compelling presentation. I've seen Andrew present many times, but he always comes up with some slides that blow me away because it's just, he has this treasure trove of historic slides, which, so he did it again today. But I have to touch on one important thing that he did show. So he showcased their new station design which is going to be called Oyster Bay on the depot on Lantau, which good design for the station, and I think everything they're trying to do is very good. What he didn't say, and this is really important for the urban design dimension, this is an urban design conference. The problem with the MTR developments, and he acknowledged himself talking about Kowloon Station, the problem of the connection to the surrounding area. These are stations that are very easy to get to by train or by car, but not on foot. The problem with that development in Lantau, and in essence, all the new developments, and my fear is also the future developments like Northern Metropolis, is that it's very much business as usual. So we will have a very good MTR station, perhaps with a good plaza in front of it, but it will be linked to a development that's very much business as usual in terms of the problematic streets, the problematic pedestrian networks, and so on that we see elsewhere in Hong Kong. So MTR will continue to be, kind of the jewel, in a district that maybe could have better mobility design. Adam, you're still here. I'm not going to say much because I agree with most of what Adam says, because how can you not agree with it? I think that the only thing I would say that's actually I disagree with what you said is that I think that the growth interestingly, it's something I discovered, the growth in public car ownership in Hong Kong actually hasn't dented the use of public transport, which is very interesting, because the majority of those cars are basically weekend drivers who are using it. Most of the it's more of a prestige thing, it seems, and so luckily that still hasn't played out in increased congestion or increased use of private cars, and we'll see if it remains that way. Barry, your presentation after lunch was very interesting, and thank you for waking us up with that. I think that it was, needless to say, this kind of person or people-centric approach and surveys are indeed extremely important. I was struck by the repeated responses that you got, people saying it's pretty good, but then also saying it's not good enough. And I think that it kind of captures a problem we have in Hong Kong, which is things sort of work, but they are never or rarely better than the good enough level in terms of the kind of the public realm and the walkability and so on. And so it's kind of an interesting way of capturing that particular dilemma. Mr. Lin, I guess, has left. I mean, I don't have much to say about that. How can I describe it? Onslaught of technology, and I mean, it's either very impressive or very scary or both. I just have my my doubts that I mean, at the end of the day, what I heard is a very impressive use of AI for optimization of operations and an attempted optimization at design under the assumption that the simulation that is, I guess, driven by AI achieves, I think in one case he said 80% accuracy or something like that. I think the problem with that and the problem with simulation in general, anybody who does simulation knows, is that you tweak the assumptions a little bit and everything falls apart. And I think so I have a great concern about over-reliance on technology with AI or without AI to kind of make everything perfect, and that's actually a very old engineering instinct that I think is can be risky. Julian, I mean, of course, you said a lot of things that were very interesting, very important, and spot on. I think the issue about speed is extremely important. The connection between speed and geometry, and a whole lot of design paraphernalia, because this is an urban design conference. And there's a lot of things that are kind of principle, they're about policy, about this and that, but speed and actual physical design, the relation between the two is extremely important, and you made that connection very, very well. I disagree with you about railings. I think they're almost always unnecessary. So, but that's really actually the risk in when you take the perspective of safety as an issue. I mean, if safety is the thing that you look at, then railings begin to make sense in some cases, for example. I mean, and so that's where I think that, because I think the Transport Department will defend all the use of railings, like on the one hand we'll say safety, on the other hand, flow, the drainage issue, right? So, but anyway, that's what I have to say about that. And I think that just finally, Phil already said something about the things that you said. I do think that your point in the end about, well, think about something about streets and roads. I observed a long time ago that in Hong Kong, we no longer or hardly ever design and build streets. It's almost always roads these days. And that's, even the names are roads, and that tells you something. But I think that your point about design versus regulation is an excellent point at which I will end my, I'm sorry if I took a bit too long, leading to my maybe first question to the panel. Because design, I completely agree that no amount of design can deliver better than regulation, because people just adjust their behavior in an environment that's designed to support a certain kind of behavior. So with that, I just want to, the title of this panel is Mobility and Well-Being. I don't think it's showing here, but that's, believe me, that's a title. And I want now everybody to take off their hat, the specific hat, okay, which is, you know, the road safety, the eVTOL. Forget about buses, please, for a second. I want to ask you each to say what is, how you would define well-being as a feature of mobility. What does it mean, well-being, in the context of mobility? It's a tough question, maybe. It's not a trick question. I just kind of, I really kind of take a step back and just say what you think well-being is.
I'll have a go. I think one of the things that is incredibly stressful is when you're lost. And I've already been lost a couple of times in Hong Kong, not surprisingly. Yeah, I mean, I think you know, you want to, want to get to where you want to be without having to work too hard. It wants to be a comfortable, enjoyable experience. And I think wayfinding, and you shouldn't have, ideally you shouldn't have to look at lots of signs to do that. Or it should be natural. And I think when something is natural, then it feels comfortable and it feels pleasant. I think when it's convoluted and there's a danger and you might be a bit late, then I think the stress levels rise, and I think then the experience becomes unpleasant. So for me, legibility is really important in terms of comfort.
I think it is a big question, well-being, but so just I think the best way maybe to answer is with an example. So for me, well-being means passenger experience. Passenger experience giving me lots of options, and I think my favorite terminal is T5 in Heathrow. So when it opened, Richard Rogers designed it, and I actually look forward going to T5. And I think that is just an example for me. Lots of other people have other examples, but it is not only getting from A to B, because speed on a commuter route is obviously essential, but I think it is giving me other options and making my journey more pleasant. And combining it with things I think that Barry mentioned earlier on the way, right? So what do I want to have? I want to grab a coffee. I want to check something. I want to go to the toilets. I want the toilets to be clean, and that could be at a train station. Train stations aren't so successful, I think, in the UK. I wouldn't say they're very pleasant, and I think there's certain airports that do it very well.
It's a really interesting question, Oren. Well-being. Well-being is a human. So it's about humanness of mobility and being well in that context. So I almost look at it a bit like a Maslow's hierarchy. And so you don't want to do dead. You don't want to be dead. So let's get the fundamentals right. So you need to make sure you've got a safe system where people don't do dead. And then building on that, you don't want to do delayed dead either. So you don't want to die from breathing bad air. So you want to get these fundamentals right, which is all what I was talking about in the presentation, about having the right mix between metro and bus and then prioritization of cars and the polluters and traffic incidents reduce, etc. So I'd put that there, and then I'd build on that along the lines of what was just said there about, you want to have a good experience, you want to be able to get around a city, you want to be able to go to hospital or work, you want to go to the sporting events, and so it goes up the chart. So you get the fundamentals right, then you build on that, and then it should be a wonderful experience to go to a place, Hong Kong, and like I said, be in a livable, well-being environment. That's how I look.
Well, I would very much agree. So I think the bottom part is that I still live. But the second part would be I won't get injuries which will last. And another level may be you won't get very bad experience to the psychology, okay, traumatic experience which lasts. And sometimes it will go away. And then, of course, building above that, of course, we look for, say, enjoyment and really happiness, walking. But for me, I think most of the experience of traveling would be just normal. I think I wouldn't say that I need to be particularly happy for every trip. Normally, I expect that so long I can complete that trip. Occasionally, I can have some very good experience. I very much enjoy the trip, walking along. But that also depends on other reasons. For example, with whom I'm walking, and also whether I have some other back experience with others or with my work. So I think as designer, for example, it's difficult. You cannot control the happiness of the others. But at least I think the basic one is that we provide the basic. But if we can do more, of course, we provide a very nice environment so that people can walk along, enjoy, and families walking together.
So beyond the basic mental and physical health, which is a prerequisite, and a lot of the time people are not thinking about physical health as part of mobility. Now, I'm a bit strange. I never take escalators. I always take the steps. And our MTR guy isn't here. Why? Because every day I think, well, why do I pay for a gym membership when I can just, take these stairs? And there's lines of people queuing up for an escalator, and it's 12 steps, and I can't kind of get around that mentality. So I'm always thinking there's a physical aspect to this. Can I take a bike trip? Is that good for my general health? And so I think what comes out of this is that there is no one-size-fits-all answer to this, Oren. In an inclusive society, we all measure what that aspect of health is. If I'm 80 years old, maybe it's about not feeling stressed. It's about actually physically being able to cross that road. It could be something very basic. If I'm a teenager, I want thrills and spills. So, different things for different people at different times of life, I think.
Very good. Good. Just kind of my own slightly different angle on this is I define well-being, mobility well-being, for me, is being in Tokyo. That for me is mobility well-being. And what do I mean by that? It's a mental state that I have when I'm in Tokyo, where I feel that I could go anywhere, any distance, whether it's short, medium, or extended, in a very comfortable and relaxing way. And yes, I'm not doing rush hour maybe, but I mean, Tokyo has a way of accommodating walking, biking, short distance metro, bus rides. For me, it's like silk is flowing through my veins. So that for me, Tokyo is my dream city for mobility. So that's, but it's a way of saying that it's not just about the physical feeling of a particular journey. It's about the entire city being accessible. That for me is a well-being, is a feature of well-being. So anyway, one more question I have for the panel, then we can open it to the floor. Again, without try to avoid not wearing your specific hats on, especially you two. I'm saying, because you two represent technologies or modes, and name the most promising technology today that will improve that mobility well-being or urban mobility.
E-bikes, yeah, definitely. They're just fantastic. I mean, it's like having bigger legs. That's what it feels like. Or someone just gently push. If you've not ridden an e-bike, in a hilly city, make a tremendous difference. I was in Melbourne in September, and I had a line bike. And being a gridded cities often have quite steep gradients because they take no account of topography when they lay out the grid. And there's some quite steep streets in Melbourne. And I was on a line bike, and I just absolutely flew up this hill. It was a joy. It was the closest thing to flying. So yeah, and my understanding is that they're not legal yet in Hong Kong. Is that, yeah? But they will be soon. Sorry? Not on the road. But they will be soon, I hope. And I think they could be absolutely transformative for this city. And change because that's often, we've talked to lots of people who've been here about, as a practice, we do a lot on planning for cycling in the UK. It's very much government policy. And when we've mentioned it here, it's like, but we've got hills, But e-bikes really, really do solve that. And I think it will be transformative.
I think it's quite a hard question. I'm trying to think, but I think if I follow on from you, Phil, I actually think maybe it's not about the actual technology in a new form of transportation, because we've seen, I think it's very good that there's a big switch, and if you look at Scandinavia, it was heavily subsidized for people to get used to electric cars, so that was a first move. Then other cities have followed, and there's of course a very big ambition 2030, and southern Italy has big plans to roll out new EV charging stations, etc. So I don't think it's necessarily about the big technology is maybe EV cars or EV scooters, but I think it's the infrastructure, because infrastructure is always where then the big ambitions tend to fail, because people then focus so much on actually producing this new mode of transportation in form of a vehicle, and then infrastructure is left behind. So we've seen it in America, in the US as well. People are willing to spend more money to go electric, but then, I mean, we see it in London. You have to drive around for ages, and then there's like one charging point, and that's it. And then people think, okay, it doesn't really work. So I think it's almost like the context or like the enabler to this new form of technology that will then help to move it forward, rather than a specific vehicle or mode of transportation.
I think technology can distract us sometimes. I think technology is amazing. There's wonderful things. I agree. Like the e-bikes are amazing. Not sure I'd ride one in Hong Kong yet, though. But I think they can distract from what is so powerful if we can get it right with the skills and the technology we've had for a long time. But we just haven't been able to. I think everyone speaking today has had some level of frustration that we know what to do, but we just can't get it done for various reasons of sign-offs and political reasons, whatever. The systems that we operate in. I think the systems hold us back. And so, just to give an example, I was running buses in London a few years ago. City Mapper approached us, and we've got this amazing technology. We know where everyone wants to go in London. And so we can fill the gaps that the red bus network has. And I said, you do know buses normally lose money, right? Oh no, we've got the technology, we can make this work. Okay, all right. So we entered into a relationship with them where they set up a demand responsive service, which was very flexible. But the problem is we've got technology is in a different universe to the transport industry. And the transport industry is entrenched with infrastructure and ways of doing things and rules and codes that are very slow moving. And then we've got this technology that comes in, doesn't understand that language. Want to do it yesterday, and we've got all this funding, we need to spend it, we need to do this. And these worlds just are completely different universes. So we tried to act as the go-between and say, you know, you've got to work with TfL, you've got to work through the processes, but the rules didn't enable that because you couldn't have big buses, because you had to get 3 months in advance to get registration to do a particular route. They wanted to change a route every second day, or every afternoon, depending on the flow of information. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Technology is great, but until we find a way to implement what we already know, technology is a distraction, my opinion.
Yeah, I think for big technology, I'm not too sure, but I would admire some of the innovations, say for the airport, for the autonomous vehicles, the systems, and they can make it so reliable. But for road safety, I think there are many areas which may not rely on new technology, but better use of technology already available. There are still issues which we are puzzled that why they should happen, because I think in the system, in the safe system, we have not actually grasped the main point in using the technology. For example, we still have vehicle, for example, a bus or lorry rolling down a steep hill simply because the driver has forgotten to put on the parking brake. I mean, naturally, I would think that the lorry should have detected that if no driver is on the seat, then automatically the vehicle is locked. It shouldn't happen. And then we still have many collisions involving large vehicles while sometimes reversing or turning. Even though there is already a system installed for reversing cameras here, there, but because the drivers cannot cope with all the cameras and all the facilities, high-tech facilities already available, how can we make it better? I think that would be the way to go. Thank
Well, I'm going to come back to the tech bit and say it's already here, and I think it's this. This is bringing information to the individual, and at the moment we call it a smartphone, but I think compared to 10 years from now, it's still a dumb phone. And the ability now for, so say our example that I showed you of wayfinding that little route through Shamshui Po. At the moment, that's still quite a basic thing. That's the quickest route, or the most interesting route. But once we can collect much more data about our environment, and that's actually giving us informed information maybe about the surface, air temperature, sunshine, pollution index, it's synthesizing it, and as now again, putting my 80-year-old hat on, I can go, well, usually I take that route, but I'm going to take that route because they're digging a hole in the ground today. So I think this ability to have real-time information that people can cherry pick what's relevant to them will become a very powerful individual tool. And I have hope for that. Despite your worry about big data, I think there can be benefits.
No, I completely agree. Just kind of a very quick kind of comment from my side. I was actually going to say GPS, but you took it much beyond GPS, which I completely agree with. The only thing I would say in agreement with Adam is that my problem with technology, I think there's a lot of actually interesting and promising technologies, including the stuff that they're doing in Shenzhen. The problem is that sometimes these technologies, there's such an infatuation with technology. And there is sometimes an agenda driven by, to be honest, industry. It kind of sucks the oxygen out of the room, and people lose focus of things that are actually low tech, but are still very good solutions. So buses may be boring technology. I'm not talking about hydrogen and all that stuff, but they're still probably the best way, in addition to trains, to move a lot of people a lot of big distance fast in an urban environment, as are trains. These are 150-year-old technologies, and they still haven't been replaced and won't be replaced, certainly not by eVTOLs, or, and I don't think anyone would argue otherwise. So, yeah, so there's just almost kind of technology can just hijack the conversation in a dangerous way, in my view. Sorry, I know you wanted to say something, but we have to leave this room in a few minutes because there's a wedding next door. So let's open the floor for a couple of questions so that at least we, yes, please.
Thank you.
Oh, you. So that gentleman is next. Go ahead.
Just quickly, I like simple questions. If I were to summarize, there was a session on placemaking, which I enjoy very much. If I were to summarize the essence of the whole session on placemaking, can I say in 4 words, less traffic, more life?
Yes. Yes, but I would say that even if you've got traffic, you can still have life. Oh,
I
sorry.
see. Okay.
Yes,
So there are exceptions.
No, I would say you can have life anyway. You know, just because you've got lots of traffic, you can still have life. But you can make it even better if you reduce the traffic.
So it's a general rule that less traffic, more life is a general rule.
Yeah, but I guess more life is what I'd argue for. More life through good design.
Right.
Okay, and you know you can get more life.
Got you. So it's not just a reduction of traffic.
No.
Reduction of traffic plus better design.
No. It's redesigning the space so that the driver gets the right signals. If you design the street to look like the driver has priority, the driver will take priority. I mean the railings, you know.
Okay.
So even if you've got the traffic that you've got, redesign the street so that it looks more like a pedestrian-dominated space, and cars will slow down. Even if you've got the same amount of traffic, you'll make it better. But even better, if you can reduce the traffic, fantastic.
Got you.
You know, but don't say, well, we can't do anything. We have to have the roads like they are today because we can't reduce traffic. You can do a lot. I mean, the one I showed you, the circles in Bexley.
Yeah, I like that.
Absolutely no change to
like
the traffic. 20,000 vehicles there, no change whatsoever. Traffic is traffic. Nothing was changed.
So even if you don't reduce the traffic, you can still make the place much better.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, one more question. That gentleman over there.
Thank you. This is Chris here. I'm a transport planner. I've worked with Transport Department in drafting the Link and Place framework, pedestrian planning framework for, which was published last year. And my question being that the Manual for Street, the second version, is published since 2010. How is the experience and journey of UK in manifesting, in making change and managing change radically, in the sense that it is more or less from the bottom up, and how to arise those interests and desire from the local residents and community? The reason being I put that question is that I've been dealing and lobbying with district councils and local residents. When we talk about well-being, all supported. When we talk about like air quality, carbon neutrality, everybody say yes. But when we get down to talking about closing off their streets, moving out of the cars, and changing their streets, it's a different story. They will ask, then how do we quantify it? How do we, is it really, I won't get sick? Is it really that we will live longer? I mean, that kind of questions and the mindset of the people is actually have that contradicting.
Sorry, just we're running out of time. So was there a question?
I think I'll be trying quickly. It's kind of about implementation. It's about engagement with the public. I mean, change is difficult. Telling the public we're going to, there's a phrase, isn't there? Things are bad enough already, and you want to change it. You know, we're telling them we're going to change it for the better, but there's a risk we might change it for the worse. You know, they don't like the way it is now, but they've got used to it. We're going to come along and change it. We might make it worse. There's a risk there. So we have to tread really carefully. We have to allow them to imagine, take them to see if it's been done somewhere else, take them to see it, get them to talk to the residents somewhere else about what it's really like, be honest about the pros and cons, and maybe do trials. I mean, I think trials are really, really important. Modelling this stuff is really hard, because if you make the assumption that we close the road here and all the traffic here goes over there, experience shows that it doesn't. It's not a zero-sum game. There is this thing called disappearing traffic evaporation. If you make it a little bit harder to drive at the margins, some car trips won't be made. So the displacement will not be like 100%. But that's really hard for people to understand. So trial it, monitor it, you know, and if it doesn't work and they don't like it, but give it enough time to settle down and for the benefits to actually accrue, and people can say, you know, it's nicer now. My kids can walk to school, and it's quieter. I can sleep at night, you know. So yeah, I think I'd suggest that. But okay,
I'm afraid we have to wrap it up on this point, which is a good way to end. So thank you all very much for your attention. Thanks for the panelists, and I guess that's it.